Welcome back to the Echoes podcast. I'm Jessica Smetana. He's Mike Golic Jr., and we are back to celebrate another Notre Dame victory, 36-7 over NC State. Mike, we're kind of on a roll here with some wins stacking against one another.
Yeah, this is what we'd hoped when we signed up to do this podcast for this season. We were coming off a national championship appearance, and we thought, all right, Notre Dame's in a great position to do that again. The first couple of weeks really tested our ability to weather the storm, but we're here now, and we're happy again.
Much like the football leprechaun, which was unveiled right before the Miami game, we were also unveiled right before the Miami game. And for a couple weeks there, we said, are we cursed? Should we put ourselves down and then put down the football leprechaun as well? But no, so far, Mike, these 4 wins, especially these nice home wins Notre Dame has notched the last 2 weeks. I feel better about both us and the football leprechaun.
I would just say, because I know Marcus had the new football leprechaun on in the press conference going into the NC State week, and a lot of people were worried because he hadn't worn that since Texas A&M. So all of a sudden, that renewal, the leprechaun gets a new lease on it, which I'm happy about. I've enjoyed its addition to the arsenal.
He's super cute. Yes. Shout out to one of our fans, Spike, who sent us that and told us, hey, are you concerned at all about this? And I was like, I wasn't, but now I am. So thank you. We're all crazy. But anyways, if you're crazy and a Notre Dame fan, you should subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave comments. We love chatting with the commenters on the YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you follow shows that you like. So please follow along. We're having a lot of fun, at least the last 4 weeks. There's a big one coming up. We'll get to that in a little bit. But let's start with NC State, Mike. Notre Dame, the second of this 3-game home stretch now. They beat Boise State, only allowed 1 touchdown. And they beat NC State, only allowed 1 touchdown again. Shut down NC State's quarterback and Hollywood Smothers, their running back, held them to season lows. Season low for CJ Bailey in passing, season low for Hollywood Smothers in rushing, only 46 yards. He averaged 3.8 yards per carry, which is the second lowest he's averaged he's had the season since the opening game that they played against Eastern Carolina. So the defense really held up their end of the bargain in this one. What are you seeing that you like right now that is keeping this train on the track?
Health and comfort, right? Like, obviously in this game, Devonta Smith was out again, which is going to be a big subplot going into the USC game and his status and how it affects it. But you look at the rest of this group having Leonard Moore back, what a gift it is to watch that young man play football. And kind of like a great left tackle on the offensive line, one good shutdown corner does make life easier for everybody else in certain ways. But they're playing faster, physical, and more downhill. I don't know if it's a ton of changes in play calling. I do think, just anecdotally, there's been what looks like more man coverage. There's been what looks like more pressure than we saw in the first couple of weeks of this season. And I do think they've also gotten some of the rotations for their different groups down. We talked a little bit about linebacker last week, the defensive line and the guys they've got working through there, having Boubacar start to ascend and become the player that we kind of predicted he could be before the season. All of that. So I think a lot of it, Jess, is just a good reminder. Time and reps for a group with a new coordinator and some important new parts in the secondary, the defensive front, took a little bit to gel, got trial by fire early, but now you're seeing the benefit, a lot of that early playing time for some of these guys showing up in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, it really hasn't been since that last drive of the first half against Purdue where I've been like, oh my God, I'm going to lose it. And so you have to give credit where it's due to Chris Ash, to Marcus Freeman, to all the defensive coaches, and of course, the players themselves for playing the way that we thought they could play when the season started. Like you said, it feels like they are playing really fast. I mean, there's been some big hits too. That Drake Bowen tackle was automatically, you hear the crowd in Notre Dame Stadium just like, oh my God, as soon as it happens. The Jalen Stroman sack, which I want to talk about in a little bit. But yes, let's talk about Boubacar Traore first, because coming into the season, of course, there were a lot of high hopes for players on this D-line, but he's coming off of a pretty massive injury, and it seems like now he's really finding his stride. And Mike, I was surprised to see that he's now tied for 10th in the country with 5.5 sacks on the season. So despite those early game struggles, and maybe the whole team was kind of a half step slow, he's climbing up there in the sack stats, which is great. He had 2 against NC State and just really kind of dominated. I mean, just a huge game for him.
Yeah, he's looked really in control. looks like he's got his legs under him again, and I don't know if this was a holdover from last year's injury, but first few games of the season, while he had flashed and had our only sack against Miami, it looked like he was kind of playing on his tiptoes a little bit, didn't feel like he had all of his legs underneath him. That's completely changed now, but Jess, a lot of the sack production is also indicative of the overall defensive production. Like, we've seen a couple of sacks this year now for Notre Dame where they shut down a screen by the opposing team because guys are in the way, guys are aware. Like, it's a defense that's playing with a really high football IQ right now, recognizing stuff like that, and then it's putting them in a position to sack the quarterback. This week, kind of like we've had for the last couple weeks, where you've got a quarterback that can move around and make some things happen with his feet. I thought this group led by Boubacar did a good job of having rush lane integrity. One of his sacks late in this game was because he maintained outside leverage on a play. He trusted that the guys on the inside who were moving and stunting around were going to be able to get pressure, and eventually he was going to be there to wrap it up. So this group is playing within themselves, but there's no doubt he's the point of the spear up front, and he's the guy that you can count on to get that win and close and finish on the quarterback, which is a skill. Like we talk all the time in modern football. Pressure's great, but there is still an art in getting home and being the guy that can corral the quarterback, and he's putting a lot more of that on tape lately, which is awesome.
Yeah, and the big guys up front also had quite a day. Elijah Hughes had a sack. Junior Tuihalamaka had a tackle for loss and had just like kind of wrecked a couple plays in a row there against NC State. But okay, let's talk about the Jalen Stroman play where he did like a delayed blitz and got CJ Bailey kind of by the ankles and like pushed him into his blockers. What did you see on that play and what did you like about it?
Again, a group that's really getting used to the timing of playing with each other. Like blitzes like that take reps to understand how it's going to unfold, because you want to make sure, all right, in that play, it looked like he was kind of keying the running back, like you'd call it a green dog, where if the backer that's on the running back in man protection sees the back go in protection somewhere else, he's got free reign to just go blitz because he's got no coverage responsibilities. I think this was more designed than that, but he waited for the running back to go out in protection and had to wait for those two guys on the stunt up front to clear and time that to hit downhill just right. And if you do that, adding a safety pressure and you time it well, it's almost impossible to account for up front because that guy's almost never in your initial count of like, all right, if we're the 5 offensive linemen, we're finding the 5 most dangerous guys. The running back's got his responsibility. Rarely are you going to account for the safety that's that third level defender working his way in. So that one is probably one of the biggest like good health checkups for this defense of, all right, they're getting used to each other. They're getting used to the timing of this. That attacking downhill mentality has taken hold enough to where, they feel comfortable cutting it loose like that. Yeah.
Also, to mention our other outstanding safety of which we can now say 3. We got 3 really good ones. Luke Talich also, will add him to the mix. He's made some big tackles this year, but Adon Schuler caught a pick in this game, right to him, Mike, but still he caught it. It was awesome.
It was nice to see after the Miami game where it looked like it was coming right at him, and obviously he had to wear the, not going out and getting that one. But Jess, you're right. Notre Dame came out early in this game and a lot of like dime 6 defensive back personnel stuff, and then late in the game went to a ton of 3 safety stuff with Adon Schuler, Tay, and then Luke Talich. So having those guys, especially Talich, being able to play down near the box and do the stuff he does, like, again, this is just kind of early in the season. It felt like Notre Dame's defense was trying on hats. They didn't know who they wanted to be, and then you had personnel issues with injury. Now that they're getting a little bit steadier diet of the guys in the field, Chris Ash is getting used to the skill sets that he's able to deploy. I think you're seeing a group overall where they're finding for situations answers to questions that before they weren't totally sure of. And that 3 safety look has probably been one of the best. I mean, talking about 2 young guys in there flanking one of your captains, 2 guys that early in the season were getting spot duty and then were forced into more and now look like comfortable starters out there.
Yeah, it's been quite an adventure watching this defense. And Kingston Viliamasa also had a big pick. Great dance celebration to the sexy Dexy. Carson Hobbs with a pick towards the end of the game too, which was huge. I know you love that.
Well, I mean, you feel good because Carson Hobbs was one of the guys that got playing time pulled back, and Marcus Freeman talked about him specifically. Delayed gratification one of Marcus's big messages to the team.
Yeah.
And so, like, as a teaching point for a coach, I guarantee defensive meeting, that might even be in the team meeting. That's a player pulling up right away. And if you're Marcus Freeman, you're saying, this is a guy who got on the field for us, had a rough couple of weeks. We sat him down for a bit. He could have moped. He could have talked shit. He could have done whatever. And instead he hung in there, and now he gets his hands on the football to end the game when he gets his opportunity. And that could turn into more opportunities. Like, we're going to need all these guys. We've seen injury affect the secondary a ton. So that was an awesome moment. And I thought just a really impressive testament to the culture they built around this team, where you could lose a guy easily like that. The portal era guy could think, all right, I'm going to shut it down. I'll get my reps somewhere else next year, and that'll be it. But to stick with it and do that, like, big confidence boost for him, big boost for the staff too.
One other interception that maybe should have counted also was the Christian Gray incomplete pass. They ruled it incomplete, was not an interception. On review, I'm not so sure. Also came 2 plays after what I think is one of the worst calls I've seen of the season. And you know what? Terry McCauley, the referee expert who we talked about a few weeks ago, he agrees with me, Mike. He said that might be the worst reviewed call decision that I've seen this football season. What did you think about that? Am I right in thinking those 2 calls, especially back to back, pretty egregious once again?
Like, I understand in general, like, losers talk about officiating after they lost and stuff.
But we won, so we can complain about it, and we're not like sore losers about it. That's my thing. Like, I want to complain about officiating when the team wins, because then you can't be like, oh, what a loser, blah, blah, blah. Like, after the Texas A&M game, we did not complain about the Donovan. I keep saying Kirk Heinisch. I can't get it out of my system. I'm sorry.
It's hard.
The Donovan Heinisch hold on the last play. We mentioned it. We said that's not why they lost, Mike. So I feel confident that we're allowed to complain in this case.
Oh, no, we're 100. And I think that's the thing, is it's so egregious and so emblematic of larger officiating issues across sports, but certainly in college football in our own backyard now, that back-to-back weeks, I know the ACC officials, when it got announced, got booed right away in the stadium. So the fact that everyone's aware, like I always said, you should never know an official's name if you're a layperson at home. And the fact that now our whole fan base is cued in enough to where every time we hear ACC officials, your skin starts to crawl. That's not good for the sport. So no, Jess, absolutely within reason to want to rage quit over what we saw in that game. And thankfully, it was a ball don't lie enough situation all day for Notre Dame's defense to where that didn't become a thing.
Exactly. It didn't matter. At that point in the game, though, was a close, I think it was still 7-7 tie game. So, like, I mean, it definitely impacted how much time Notre Dame had when they did get the ball back and had to do like the 1-minute drill to set up the field goal. So like it is important. And like, I do want to just mention that, because I thought that like 2 weeks in a row now, you're right. Like, I shouldn't know where the officiating crew comes from. The exception to that is the Big 12 crew that did like all of Notre Dame's playoff games last year. By the end of the season, I was like, oh, buddy, what up? Which I'm not, they didn't do anything egregious other than the pass interference call in the Orange Bowl, but we don't have to talk about that. It was just another week where, Mike, I was just scratching my head at the incompletion that they ruled a completion. I think was the egregious one. And then the 3-minute long delay on the review of the safety call was quite a long time.
That being said, I'm glad Notre Dame's defense is back in the business of making plays like this that have to be reviewed. Like, what a long way we've come to where, Jess, we thought, hey, a couple weeks into the season, we're a fully offensive team, and that's just going to be our lot in life. The defense has been a weapon the last couple of weeks. They've given the offense chances that, quite honestly, the offense hasn't paid off nearly enough. The numbers still look gaudy. There's still plenty to like. But there's things under the hood. I mean, they got handed 2 possessions in plus territory, and I think came away with field goals on both of those. So, like, those have to be 7 going forward, and those are the things. But Notre Dame, again, defensively, I think everyone's doing a really good job playing their role. And that, I think, because roles have become a little clearer in recent weeks for these guys on defense. Biggest game going forward, like Dallas Golden still had a tough day in the slot. What I will say is, man, he was close on some of those plays. Touchdown was a fingertip away. There was completions later where he's all over guys, and sometimes there's just no defense for the best throw. And I think there were a couple of spots where that happened, but there's no doubt, like, walking into this week, like, have you seen anything about Devontae Smith and the health there going into this week? Because
no, I haven't. We're recording this like right as coaches Monday press conference is going to start. So there may be some news on that you as fans may have heard already. But no, Mike, right now, I do not know.
All right. Well, so that will be the most important plot point of this week, considering the matchup that we've got coming up. They'll have decisions to make about how they want to deploy Leonard Moore against the USC wide receiver group, because he is clearly erasing people from existence all season long. But no, this will be. The defense is trending in a really positive direction. I don't want to say they're all the way back yet. USC will be kind of a good litmus test for that, but this looks familiar again. Like, I feel comfortable with the Notre Dame defense in a way that I did not early in the season, and I don't think that's just the level of opponent that they've played. I think it is this unit making some substantial changes in how they deploy players, which players they're deploying, and getting guys healthy in the right spots.
And I will add, I know there's been a huge coaching change in Arkansas since Notre Dame played them, but man, did they score a lot of points against Tennessee this past weekend. And I think you're right. Like, USC statistically will be a better offense than any offense Notre Dame's played this season. But when you're holding teams to their season lows, and you're comparing that across the board to all the teams they've played, that is an important thing to look at. And so, yes, NC State not as good of an offense as USC will be, but still holding their two best players to season lows for passing and rushing. So want to shout that out, catching interceptions, completing sacks, tackles for loss. Like, all of those things are good.
Look, I mean, just think about Drake Bowen when you saw him matched up in coverage against Smothers, the running back out wide, and you thought what that could turn into. That was a guy that got beat for the game-winning touchdown against Texas A&M on a route he had covered down by a tight end, and now in this case comes out and makes the play. Like, that to me was just one of those moments I kind of filed away as like a good emblematic moment of how the defense has come along in recent weeks. And Drake Bowen is kind of the totem for the whole defense, playing physical, running and making plays like that, making big hits to end the game. That's the guy that we expected to be leading the defense this year. And he showed up a lot more in recent weeks, looking the way we expected him to.
Yeah, Drake Bowen, innocent. Okay, when we come back from the break, Mike, we'll talk about the offense. We have lots of things to talk about with this offense, with CJ Carr, the running backs, Eli Raridan, the KK Smith game. So we'll be right back and discuss all of those things.
Breakfast might be the most important choice you make all day. That's because with Wendy's 2 for $3 breakfast, you can mix and match your very own perfect pairing of our delicious morning favorites.
With this breakfast deal, the choice is all yours, not someone else's. And isn't that how it should be? It's your breakfast after all, not Martha's. She can pick her own breakfast. This one's all you.
No matter what you choose, from our sausage biscuit with that grilled breakfast sausage, or the egg and cheese biscuit with fresh cracked grade A egg and melty American cheese on a fluffy buttermilk biscuit, a small size of perfectly seasoned potatoes, or a medium hot coffee to power through the morning.
All you got to do is pick your ideal morning pair. You really can't lose because you're the one calling the shots. The choice is all yours. Wake up to Wendy's 2 for $3 breakfast, just the way you want it.
Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. No substitutions. Not valid in a combo. Single item at regular price.
Support for the Echoes comes from Google. Now, every August, we talk about the new rule changes that are coming to college football. But now that we're in the middle of the season, it's kind of hard to follow the real impact that those rules are having on games. We remember all the noise and commotion made about the injury timeout rule that was going into effect early this season.
With AI mode and Google search, you can just type in, how have this year's college football rule changes impacted the season so far? And AI mode will pull together key details and give you a summarized AI-powered response. It's perfect for those big, nuanced questions that don't have one simple answer.
And it doesn't end there. Let's say you want to keep going deeper. With AI mode, you don't have to start a whole new search. You can ask direct follow-ups to learn more about specifics or just explore related ideas. So whether you're wondering about a complex scheme, a new rule, or the intricacies of the transfer portal, with AI mode, you can just ask Google. All right, welcome back to the Echoes at the Echoes ND Pod, wherever you're on social media. Make sure to download, subscribe, rate, review. As always, we appreciate that. And Jess, before we turn the page on USC for this week, this was an interesting one. Notre Dame offensive has quarterback throw for 342 yards, rushes for 143 yards on the day, has 200-yard wide receivers, wide receiver and tight end. And it felt like there were some things that kind of gave us some consternation coming out of this performance. How did you feel watching this? Because again, when I read 36 points and all of the numbers that I just gave you, most people would saw off their right arm for that. And maybe we've gotten caviar taste early from the CJ Carr experience, but it felt like there was plenty of meat left on the bone.
There was plenty of meat left on the bone because there were so many issues in the red zone. Once again, Mike, if you told me the flip side of that, if you told me Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price would average, 4.4, 4.8 yards per carry, but only 2 runs over 20 yards, and Malachi Fields was only going to have 1 reception. Jordan Faison was only going to have 49 yards. I probably would have been like, uh-oh, like that doesn't sound like a recipe for success. But like we mentioned earlier, 2 receivers, tight end and receiver, going for over 100 yards this week. KK Smith having a bit of a breakout game, scoring a touchdown. Tyler Buckner coming in clutch with a conversion later in the game on 4th down.
How about that? The Tyler Buckner redemption moment right there. Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. But I was definitely a little concerned about the run game after this one. And I don't know what exactly the issues were, whether it was that NC State's game plan was just, we're going to load up the box. We're not going to let them run at all. They're going to have to beat us in the air, which Notre Dame did because CJ Carr can do that. Or whether it was the offensive line just not dominating enough, or whether it was just scheme, like Notre Dame should have switched up a little bit with some of their run sets. I mean, you tell me what you think the issue was, because if you look at like the box score, it doesn't seem like a terrible day rushing, but if you look at some of the advanced stats, Notre Dame was 33rd percentile in expected points added per rush, which the Game on Paper site where I get all those stats is currently down right now, so I can't read any of the other stats, but that was what it was when the game ended when I checked. And that's not a good rushing performance. That's not good enough.
No, I mean, especially not when you've got 2 all-world backs the way Notre Dame has. So it is an issue. Like you mentioned the Tyler Buckner play, though. I do think that's another example of Marcus Freeman understanding when the team needs a boost. I do think he's got a really good finger on the pulse for where the team is at on any given day. And the fact that they have all that stuff always ready, the fact that they execute on it so well, like it's a well-coached football team and it's awesome to watch. I don't want to take that for granted. The problem, Jess, for me, like looking back at this game with what you mentioned, was I think we just got beat too much up front. I think on most weeks, Ashton Craig has looked like our best offensive lineman. I could make that argument more often than not. And Brandon Cleveland, the nose tackle for NC State, I want to name check that too because he was borderline unblockable for most of the day. Played grown man, which, I mean, NC State, the long history of Dave Doran and that program has been filled with plenty of really good offensive linemen, even as of late. If they haven't been like the NFL names that you've necessarily been used to, this group still had some dudes up front. And Brandon Cleveland made it really hard for them. A lot of the short yardage run that you saw stuff was him just stacking and shedding guys in the middle of that defense. And there's no doubt, down by the goal line, they were crashing ends inside. They were loading guys up in the box. That was absolutely the case. But Notre Dame's offensive line has struggled to really move people off the ball all year. It's a good group. It's not a great group like some of the ones that we've seen in the past for Notre Dame. And, Ashton Craig goes down late in this game, so that's something to certainly monitor. I think him not going back in, he was on the sideline and kind of looked like he was chilling there. I think that was much a product of where they were at in the game at that point as anything else. But, who was it? Joe Otting went in for him.
Otting came in,
Which was, God, let me tell you what, I've been in Joe Otting's shoes. All that looks familiar. You're going in cold late in the game with some actual stuff on the line and things still in balance and hard to get your feet under you. You feel like you're playing at a different speed because you're coming with all this adrenaline and these guys that have all played together. So if he is forced into duty next week, I think you're going to see a much better version of him. He was fine. Like he came in and did the job as a backup that was supposed to come in there. He got some praise from CJ Carr, but Jess, the short yardage stats in this game are really interesting. 5 and 14 on 4th down this season after being 22 of 30 last year. And I saw Pete Sampson put this out. Notre Dame's offense had converted 9 of 11 3rd and 4th down this season when needing exactly 7 yards, but's converted only 7 of 14 when needing just 1 yard. And that to me is the play call. Mike Denbrock is searching for answers right now because Riley Leonard's not the quarterback anymore, which means you don't have a hammer on 4th and 1 you can automatically go to, but you can also spread the ball around. Like that 3rd and 7, 4th and 7 stat to me is, hey, CJ Carr, when you've got space in this offense, He can put it anywhere and get you in good situations. But when you're in short yardage and your offensive line is not moving people off the rock consistently, and you can't count on, hey, the easiest play in football, QB sneak, just hand it off to one of these running backs because you're worrying about penetration, you're worrying about getting stuffed at the line. Now, as a play caller, you're kind of searching for an identity. And as much as we talked about Notre Dame finding it on defense, I don't think Notre Dame's found it on short yardage down near the goal line right now so far through this season.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. That's why they've been trying all these Wildcat play. I don't know if you watched the Lions-Chiefs game, but when Jared Goff, you mentioned this last week when we were talking about like variations on the Wildcat. So like Jared Goff went in motion out to the outside, caught a pass from the running back, but they called a illegal shift or something. So it didn't end up counting, but it was kind of like a little wrinkle that they added. And immediately when I saw it, I was like, they need to add this to one of those Wildcat packages for Notre Dame, because like clearly like the Wildcat direct snap run down the middle has not worked as well as they hoped it would. And maybe the offensive line is not able to do that against a lot of defensive lines. But maybe add in like something here or there, try to spice it up a little bit. But certainly, yeah, you kind of expect when it's Notre Dame, when it's an offensive line driven team, or is supposed to be, like these short yardage things, whether or not you have Riley Leonard, kind of have to be able to figure it out. And I don't know, if CJ Carr is not comfortable sneaking it, or they haven't thought of just put Tyler Buckner in and sneak it, or someone else under center. I don't know, Mike, but what are your thoughts?
Well, because didn't we used to do that with who's the tight end that's in Carolina now? That was Mitchell Evans. We used to do that with Mitch. We used to bring him in and do the under center stuff and have him do the sneak. So I don't know if we've got a tight end on the roster. Maybe that's not comfortable. Eli Raridon does many great things.
We don't have any tight ends on the roster. We have like 2 healthy ones right now. So maybe that's part of it.
That could be it. But yeah, no, Jess, I think we're going to see more kind of experimenting in fourth and short, because last year it was easy. Like we all knew you were going to trot Riley Leonard out there. You were going to run quarterback power, and it was going to pick up the first down, and away we'd go. And now Notre Dame does not have that ace in the hole left.
Yeah. Are you worried at all about the offensive line? Like, can we give 6 games in? Obviously, the first 2 games were tough, but there's been, from my untrained eye, like the interior of the offensive line seems to be pretty good.
Yep.
I just looking at like PFF grades, which again are not like the end all be all. Like they're consistently rating in like the 60-70 range and like the inside, but then sometimes on the outside, not so good. Like Knapp's gotten beat a bunch. Wagner maybe not playing as good as we hoped, but like, what are your thoughts just generally on that?
I think this is a group right now that's, above average, but that's about all I'd say at this point. They play well together. They communicate well through stuff in the pass game. I think they're a better pass pro group right now than maybe they are in the run.
The grades bear that out.
Yeah.
If you do take into account like PFF grades, like at least for, Wagner, and just kind of glancing at it right now, Knapp is better in just, run blocking than pass blocking. So,
and he's looked better overall in recent weeks. And that was kind of the Anthony Knapp trajectory from last year. I'm with you. The interior 3 I thought looked good. Gerby Lambert's improved each and every week. When he really learns how to get his pads underneath him and get physical with folks, he's so big, he's going to be an absolute problem. But he's seeing the picture clear right now, and that's probably the best description I'd give them. They see the picture clear, they communicate through things well. You're not going to beat them from the neck up a ton, but right now physically they're struggling to go out there and reestablish a line of scrimmage consistently enough to be the group that you can count on and hang your hat on. I saw anecdotally stuff that made me really happy with them, like more guys covering towards the ball, more guys helping running backs up, the stuff that quite honestly, like you watch and ticks you off a little bit early in the season when you know the standard in that room and what you're supposed to be. And so seeing that, like, these guys get it. I've been around these guys. They're great young men. They understand the pride and tradition of that room. We talked about Joe Rudolph a bunch last year. And so I trust what they're made of, but right now it's just not translating enough into consistent push up front often enough for that to be a strength of the team that people thought it was going to be going into the season.
Well, that being said, even though there were all of these issues, Mike, KK Smith, Eli Raridon, Will Pauling seems to be a favorite for CJ Carr. Like they just picked up where they left off after the Boise State miss last week, and we're like, don't worry about it, we'll do that again. Even though Malachi Fields only had 1 reception, he did get the pass interference call and probably should have gotten another one of that pass that was intercepted in the end zone. They picked up the flag on. I don't really know the explanation on that. But yeah, so weird officiating, bad on short yards, good on defense. What are our other takeaways from NC State?
I mean, big plays. Jamie Uyama on Twitter tweeted out Notre Dame's offense, 34 pass plays of 20-plus yards this season, tied for first with Ole Miss. The 2024 Notre Dame offense had 36 of those plays all last year. So what I like is we keep taking chances. Like to your point about drawing pass interference penalties, you got the horses to go run, and you got a quarterback that is now getting the respect nationally that we've all seen for CJ for, since the beginning of this season. You got one of the quarterbacks that can put it anywhere on the field and is very comfortable doing that. That throw to Eli Raridan across the middle is one of the best throws you'll see this entire season from any quarterback in the country. And he does that like twice a game at this point. He had another one to Eli down near the corner of the end zone. So when you've got all that stuff out there and your team has that big playability, like I always joke, football's kind of like blackjack. If you sit there and just have normal hands all day, you're going to seesaw and you're going to be all right. But if you want to win money, you got to hit splits and doubles, and that's big plays on offense, and that's taking the ball away on defense. And right now, you've got a Notre Dame team that's become explosive in both of those realms, and that makes you really difficult to defend.
Right, and I am curious to see how high the score can get against USC this upcoming weekend, because one thing I think of when I hear all this is like, okay, just, throw it downfield on first down, never get into short yardage third down situations. If I'm Jadarian Price, if I'm like, it's whatever, 3rd and 7 and I gain 4 yards and I realize I'm going to get tackled, I'd run backwards like 10, give the defense and give the offense a chance on fourth down. That Pete Sampson stat is hilarious. It's just like this team is the opposite of last year's team in some ways, offensively, and it's just baffling sometimes to watch, but it's also really fun to watch too. So I don't know what I like better. I'm having fun, but I hate it, but it's great.
It is amazing to me that this team could go from what they were last year to this year. Like, again, I don't want to sit here and what do kids call it, glaze too much, but like the fact that the coaching staff can make this kind of transition this quickly with the quarterback situation, with the receivers they brought in, like that is coaching. That's getting these guys ready to go out there and be at their best when their best is required. And it's been special. So again, while like Notre Dame needs to keep taking those shots downfield, CJ Carr plays with an arrogance throwing the football that you want in your quarterback, especially when he's got the ability to do so. He is afraid of no place on the field. He's afraid of no window to throw it through. He believes he can make all those throws. And so far, he's given himself and the team every reason to believe that's the case. And like Will Pauling, the guy was voted a captain before the season and was basically nowhere to be found the first couple of weeks. Him coming alive matters. You can see the way the rest of that group responds to it. So I think there's still a lot of positive signs for this offense, even if it's different. And like you said, oh, by the way, like I don't think we've seen as much Jeremiah Love in the passing attack in recent weeks as we could and should going forward. Him and Jadarian Price still show you like, hey, if the offensive line's not great right now, your running backs are, and all they need's a sliver. So you've got home runs all over the place. It's much more of a big play offense than a ball control offense the way they were last year.
Yeah, and the spread against USC opened at 9 points. Notre Dame is a 9-point favorite as of the recording of this, which to me, that's not where my confidence level is. Like when I saw Notre Dame was a 24-point favorite over NC State, even though the first half of the game, I was like, this is so frustrating. They were like driving the ball. I mean, it was just like Boise, right? I'm like, I don't know if they'll cover 24, but they're definitely 24 points better. They eventually did cover. Kind of did it the weird way with the safety and and the score at the end. But like, yeah, with USC, I'm a little surprised, Mike. More than a touchdown favorite at home. And USC, if you haven't watched a lot of Trojan football this year, I mean, they've had a weird schedule. Like they opened the year with teams that are just hard to evaluate a FBS team against, like Missouri State and Georgia Southern, where like obviously Jaden Mayaba put up just like absurd numbers. Wide receivers put up absurd numbers. But then as they've entered Big Ten play, they've still been super efficient on offense, but they've played Purdue and Michigan State. And then Illinois, who they lost to, of course, on the road. And then this win against Michigan, which Michigan's defense had a real stinker. Michigan's offense also had a real stinker. Michigan is another team that's kind of difficult to evaluate as they're in like a little bit of not like a rebuild, but like their offense isn't like 100% there. And I do wonder, like, and I'm kind of being facetious when I say this, like the last 2 years, like Al Golden was really dialed in on like how to stop that USC attack and how to stop Lincoln Riley. Even last year when it was a closer game going into the fourth quarter, they came up, Notre Dame's defense came up with 2 huge plays to ice it. I'm curious how Lincoln Riley's going to game plan against Chris Ash, because like, we've talked about it a lot. What is the coherent defensive strategy right now? Like, we've seen it more over the last few weeks, but this is going to be different for him too. Whereas like game planning against Michigan's DC Wink Martindale, like exactly what Wink Martindale is going to do, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, for better or for worse. So I don't know. I'm curious what you think about that, because this is going to be a big change over the last 3 years of this rivalry with the new defensive coordinator going up against Lincoln Riley, who's one of the better offensive geniuses in college football, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, like the system with USC, like the passing concept, sure, but like overall structure, it's not a really complicated thing. It's kind of like Indiana, where, hey, if you've got a quarterback that can spray the football around everywhere, you burn a bunch of zone read stuff with dart tight ends in the flats, and then you eventually try and go deep to Mekhi Lemon, who's been one of the best receivers in college football this season. So my hope for Notre Dame going into this week is that they don't try and be a different team. Like, I know we talked about all the zone stuff they put in the offseason, and having that tool in your belt as a changeup can be nice. Your players have displayed a confidence and an aptitude playing more man coverage in the recent weeks, and you need that to get up front. Like, I don't want to confuse the sack production with all of a sudden saying, hey, we can just let it loose with a 4-man rush and we're going to be fine. That's not how they've gotten home. That's not how we've been successful by and large. And so you've got to go out here, even as the competition gets an uptick in overall talent, and still be willing to call the same stuff that you did. To your point, Jess, it's what's made them successful against SC in the last couple of seasons. It was Jaden Mayava who was in last year. Like, we had gotten through the Miller Moss. He was the starting quarterback for the Notre Dame game. So they've seen most of the guys on this defense played against this quarterback, played against this coach, played against this system. And so a lot of times last year's tape in the portal era can be sort of a misnomer and unrealistic because there's so much different. In this case, I'm sure they're going to tap back into a bunch of that. And I'm sure Lincoln will have some answers and wrinkles, AKA they're going to probably try and throw at our freshman nickel a bunch if he's still out there. But
right.
That's the biggest concern going into the week, Jess, is like what the health of Devonta Smith is. Dallas Golden's gotten better, but still not quite there. And he's going up against the best receiver he'll see for the rest of the season in Lemon. So that's going to be the place they try and spam if they get the opportunity. And how Notre Dame tries to counteract that is going to be the turning point of the game.
Right. As good as Leonard Moore is as a corner, that's how good Mekhi Lemon is as a wide receiver. Just to like compare, just to sheer like the amount they can just change a game because their talent level is so high. And yet, like you mentioned earlier, like maybe Notre Dame will try to, Leonard Moore's he's playing more in the boundary. Like he's probably going to be on Jacoby Lane, who is also another big passing threat, I would guess. So do you shut him down and then try to make sure like you keep things tight in the middle with Golden and maybe someone else sticking around to help out? Do you move Leonard Moore around? But then like you have to worry about Lane. So, I mean, it's definitely going to be a test for the defense. Like you said, offensively, like Notre Dame's offense, they can't leave these red zone trips on the table. Like you can't go scoreless in the red zone when you're playing against a team like USC that can score. So they need to clean some of that stuff up. And I think it's pretty urgent at this point that they do that and they find something on the short yardage plays that works, because I don't think this is going to be, even though, 9-point favorite, whatever, this is one of maybe the last USC Notre Dame games we'll see in our lifetimes, Mike. And unless we get an announcement before the game, I think they're going to play like it is.
Yes, and which means that kind of like the Michigan series that unfortunately we left on the wrong note here, you don't want to give them bragging rights for eternity or however long that gap in play ends up being. So, it's going to be really interesting. Like D'Antlin's got that defense playing much more confident in recent weeks. That was a big point of contention this year. Like, they're still not they've gotten physically bigger and stronger up front than they were a couple of years ago. It's still a group that probably is more defined by athleticism. So does Notre Dame try and get a little bit more downhill, do some gap stuff underneath? Like all of that's going to be a really interesting matchup for them. But to your point about like the Michigan game last week is a perfect example. Like Michigan right now, Bryce Underwood, well paid, great prospect, probably going to be a fine player, but right now cannot pass the ball anywhere close to the level that CJ Carr can in terms of like the different kinds of throws that are accessible to him all across the field. Throws a great fastball, works well off the RPO stuff, but right now he's still getting to that point as a true freshman who's on the field. Like that stuff matters. The Notre Dame passing attack is going to be a lot more varied and diverse than the one that USC saw last week. I think they can continue to put up points. It's just going to be on the other side. We saw last year, USC against Notre Dame's defense that we thought was in final weapon mode going into the playoff, put up a bunch of yards, and were it not for a couple of pick sixes late, that game's a lot closer than people probably remember it now. So they were capable of moving the ball on Notre Dame then, and I'm sure that won't change this year.
Yeah, but I guess like the flip side of that is like Riley Leonard was toe-to-toe with Maeva in a shootout last year, and I think the offense is, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like better, but it's different this year, and it's more equipped for a shootout than last year's was. So I don't know, maybe that gives you a little bit of confidence, Mike. Before we talk a little bit about just some general college football news, James Franklin getting fired at Penn State, Indiana being the number 3 team in the country. Do you have a top 5 Notre Dame USC moments list? I have like 4 top 5 of the top 5. If you have one, maybe we can make a top 5.
All right, here. Why don't you start off with your 4? You know what? Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get Jess's top 4 Notre Dame USC moments. I will take you inside a couple of mine from my time in the rivalry, and then we'll finish off with a look at the rest of college football's world burning next on the Echoes.
Welcome back to the Echoes. We have our top 5 list of top 5 Notre Dame USC rivalry moments from obviously a Notre Dame fan's perspective. No push on this list. Okay. So I'm going to give my 5 through 2, and then Mike's going to give his number 1 because he was a player on that team. And I was not a player on any of these teams. So I'll give him deference. I'll give him number 1. So first I'm going to go with 2018, Mike. Tony Jones Jr. catches the touchdown pass kind of against his leg, if I recall. Notre Dame goes undefeated. It's the last game of the season. Make the playoff with Ian Book. Such a fun season. So anytime you beat USC at the end of the year to go undefeated, that's got to be in the top 5. So very recent one there with 2018. Number 4, I'm going to go 2017. Do you remember the 2017 Notre Dame USC game where Sam Darnold was the quarterback for USC and Notre Dame's defense put on a show?
I don't remember that game because 2017 ended up being the year where USC got hot, right? That was the year they ended up playing Penn State in the Rose Bowl.
Had it not been for Notre Dame,
yes,
that would have been a really good USC season. And instead, I preached to anyone who would listen to me the following year, like, hey, Sam Darnold's not going to be good in the NFL, which was true until like last year, inexplicably. So that was thank you. That was a really fun game. So 2017 goes on there. 49-14 Notre Dame beat them. 2023, number 3. That was the Sam Hartman year. I get these are all like there's recency bias with all of these, but Sam Hartman did like the fight on but upside down, the fight off after winning the game. And again, like, did Sam Hartman have a lot to do with them winning the game? Doesn't matter. The defense played amazing. This was Caleb Williams' return to Notre Dame Stadium. So shout out to Sam Hartman for that moment, just capping it off.
That was the game that like started to break USC when at the end of it, they just really spiraled that season, which made it even more satisfying. But you're right. Also, Sam Hartman, as he did for most of that season, understanding how to properly assimilate into the Notre Dame culture, earned the love of the fan base by being handsome and incredibly kind and all that stuff. But that picture of him in the tunnel is an all-time piece of Notre Dame lore as far as I'm concerned. The guy who's there for 1 year and already knew all the right buttons to push after that win.
Exactly. It's iconic, Mike. It's iconic. Okay, so now my number 2 is last year because, like I said, anytime you beat USC to go to the playoff, it's got to be in the top 5. Notre Dame with the 2 pick sixes back-to-back. Xavier Watson, Christian Gray. Chef's kiss. Amazing. Felt so good. And at that moment, I booked my flights to South Bend for the first round playoff game, which ended up being against Indiana. So those are my top 4 of my 5. What is your number 1?
Glad you asked, Jess. Number one, we're going to go all the way back to yesteryear in 2012. Notre Dame undefeated heading into the final week of the season against the USC team that, with Matt Barkley and like 17 other starters returning, began the year as the number one team in the country. Matt didn't even play in that game. He was hurt by that point. Eerily reminiscent, quite honestly, of the Penn State team we'll talk about here in a little bit in terms of expectations that went completely sideways out the window. Like every other game we played for the most part that year, it was still way too close and way closer than it needed to be. But the images of, guys after that game with the leprechaun hat on, tossing I remember standing with arm in arm with Braxton Cave, who was our center, throwing the fight off sign down, walking up the tunnel, looking back out. The best part of that game, too, because that was back in the BCS era, it was a playing game. So we were playing to go to the national championship that year and ended up winning that game. And we're all in the locker room in the Coliseum and we're getting hyped and we're calling the bar owner at Finney's when we're getting to the plane and we're like, keep it open. We're coming right there when we get back. And by the time we land, it's like 4 a.m. in South Bend because we're flying back across country. We're exhausted. We go there out of obligation. It's like 6 of us. And I had one Bud Light tall boy and then was so tired and sore. I was like, I'm going to go home now. So we had the best laid plans of partying through the night that were upended by the realities of college football.
Oh my God. I love that. Okay. Well, hopefully Notre Dame can add to the list this year with a victory over the Trojans. Like we said, currently not scheduled to continue next season.
Which is a farce and a travesty. And if it happens, USC should be ashamed of themselves.
Absolutely co-sign that. Before we go, Mike, humongous college football weekend that has just passed. So, of course, if you're listening to this, you probably know James Franklin was fired at Penn State. I'll also mention the Bill Belichick situation at Carolina continues to rage on. There are a number of huge Power 4 coaching jobs that are either available currently or will become available by the end of the season. And as was the last year that there was a big college football Power 4 coaching shakeup, Notre Dame could be involved in some way. Now, I have seen fans say of other teams say, hire Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman should go to Penn State, whatever. I don't expect that. I don't expect that to happen. But Notre Dame has a number of very good assistant coaches, coordinators. Do you anticipate at this point in time there will be a little bit of a coaching shakeup, or at least the coaching shakeup will touch Notre Dame in some way?
I think there's always potential. Like, the one to keep an eye on, I think, in the next few years is always going to be Mike Mickens, depending on what goes on there, just because he's a clear rising star. He's been tapped already by so many people. He's one of the named assistants that people know. Marcus Freeman has said he can, the sky's the limit for him in terms of what he sees there. And so can Notre Dame keep him if he's not the full-time defensive coordinator will be the big question. I don't know at this point for Mike Denbrock if he's got, head coaching aspirations left in his career. He's been a career assistant. He obviously came back to South Bend for a third time. So clearly there's an affinity here, maybe beyond just the current team and staff. But I think it's always a possibility when you've got a team that's continually high achievers. That means you've usually got good coaches and other programs are constantly going to be trying to pull from that. It's one of the best things Brian Kelly did was find ways to replace coaches that were constantly getting picked off for head coaching jobs as he went along. And so Marcus, who's already had to weather some of that, is going to have to continue to do that for his entire Notre Dame career. But I'm with you, too. That Penn State Marcus Freeman stuff is rage bait, clickbait. It's trying to get aggregated. I do not believe that for a single solitary second. They're going to call Kurt Signetti, offer him more money than God. And if that doesn't work, they're going to do the same with Matt Rule.
Yeah, I also will add Marcus Freeman just signed an extension the week of the Indiana playoff game last year. So hopefully he is being taken care of by Notre Dame. He's not going to show up in these like top 10 highest paid coaches list because a lot of the details of his contract are private because Notre Dame's not a public school. But as far as we're aware, he's being paid along the lines of some of the heavy hitters in the sport. But yeah, Mike, I was pretty surprised to see James Franklin let go midseason after they played in the semifinal last year against Notre Dame. And obviously Notre Dame fans like hate Penn State ever since that, at least online. And so there was a lot of like gloating and dancing on graves I saw on like Notre Dame Twitter yesterday. But I'm still I'm still shocked anytime someone gets a buyout that is that high. I mean, $50 million is absurd. It's allegedly the second highest in history behind Jimbo Fisher, which was like $75 million, which is also absurd. So anyways, college football remains insane.
Anytime they try and tell you there's not enough money for another sports program to pay players, anything like that, they're lying. What Holly Anderson always said, they wanted to, so they did. Like, that's how this all operates. And college football is no different. This one, Jess, like, I was surprised maybe with the timing, but this is a situation that felt like maybe it was getting close to running its course. James Franklin's a damn good football coach. His whole record there shows that. The big game stuff obviously became a part of the narrative that was really hard to avoid, and they pushed all the chips to the center of the table this year, and it didn't work out. But, like, the guy can coach ball. He's going to get a chance to coach it again for someone, I'm sure, sooner than later. I'm sure a number of these big-time P4 jobs that are vacating head coaches are going to probably be knocking on his door. But the guy's been there for over a decade, and that gets really hard after a while in this era to sell to your fan base, to your donors, to everyone else you're trying to juice for all that money of, all right, if we keep doing this, the definition of insanity starts to creep in. Even if you're in a better situation than most, you're eyeing that next step up the way that Notre Dame has been for a while. And so I'm not totally surprised, but man, it's a big dollar amount.
Well, I'm not surprised, I guess, after the UCLA game, but I think like in a meta way, I am surprised. And I'm just glad Notre Dame was not the team that bucked the big game trend, to state the obvious. They did come back and win that game, which now I feel even more like, oh, wow, thank God. But yeah, Mike, I do love you saying the definition of insanity, because that's a Marcus Freeman-ism. You said another one earlier. I'm a Steelers fan, so the Tomlinisms creep in. Mike Tomlin loves to say the word obviously, and now that's become a tick for me. And I say obviously way too much, especially when it's not even obvious. So I love that when coach speak just, kind of creeps in whenever you're not expecting it.
It's good messaging. That means that what Mike Tomlin has always done well, and what we're seeing Marcus Freeman do well now, is when you go back to the well on that stuff, it works. The amount of times because of Mike Tomlin, I'd rather say whoa than sick'em when talking about a player, a team, or any situation. Too many to count. He's great.
The standard is the standard. I say that all the time, and it seems like it means nothing, but I really think about it. It's very deep. Yeah, Mike. Anyways, so USC coming up this weekend, humongous, ginormous game. I pray to the Lord that we are back next week talking about a Notre Dame win, but it's going to be a tough one. So
this is why you come to Notre Dame, though. Like, I remember sitting in the hotel with my dad the night before that 2012 game we talked about, and I'm like, I understand this is for a national championship, but this is the team you come to Notre Dame to beat. Notre Dame's got rivals all over the place. The Michigan one's got more proximity, and certainly was one I had more like animosity towards because of that. But the USC-Notre Dame rivalry is just part of what this sport is built on. It's a load-bearing rivalry, and you feel the weight of that every time you walk into that game. So excited for these guys' chance. Like, you could etch your name into the history books for a long time if this rivalry isn't played again for a good stretch.
I'm excited, but I'm going to start the Pepsid regimen like tonight.
Yeah, you, me, and every other Notre Dame fan right now waiting for this weekend. It's going to be awesome, though. As always, we appreciate everyone who goes and interacts and comments and everything. We try and get back in there and answer when we can. We've done a bad job of answering them on the podcast. We'll get to it eventually. But everyone, ice up. Make sure you get your mind right for this week. It's SC week. Enjoy it. We'll talk to you on the other side. Go Irish.